Zimbabwe military takes over country, says President Mugabe is safe. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Zimbabwe's military took control of the country and detained its longtime leader President Robert Mugabe early Wednesday, capping a political showdown over Mugabe's apparent attempts to install his wife as successor. A televised announcement after tanks and troops rolled into the capital, Harare, insisted it was not a military takeover. Despite the assurances, the events bore all the hallmarks of a coup, with military vehicles stationed around the city, the army taking over the television station and a uniformed general issuing a statement. https://media4. Picsearch. com//question_mark6xq/okvA1065SFKLGTV3RW1G_thvza and height equals 237. The move by Army Gen. Constantino Chiwenga came as the struggle over who will succeed the country's increasingly frail 93-year-old leader came to a head. Mugabe has ruled since he led the country to independence from white minority rule in 1980. "We wish to make it abundantly clear that this is not a military takeover," said the statement read by Major General Sibusiso Moyo. "We are only targeting criminals around him who are committing crimes that are causing social and economic suffering in the country." https://media4. Picsearch. com/?alam_gips8x-uvoca33 height equals 237. The fate of Mugabe and his wife, 52-year-old Grace Mugabe, who increasingly looked set to succeed him, was unclear, but they appear to be in military custody. "Mugabe and his family are safe and sound and their security is guaranteed," said Moyo. Mugabe's offices had a tank blocking the road in front of it and large numbers of soldiers milling around. https://media4. Picsearch. com/?alam_gips8x-uvoca33 height equals 237. South African President Jacob Zuma, who is sending high-level envoys to Harare, said he spoke to Mugabe and he is fine, albeit confined to his home. How Zimbabwe's Mugabe clung to power for nearly 40 years. The possible ouster of Mugabe would remove one of the fixtures of African affairs for nearly 4 decades as an unwavering critic of many Western policies and international institutions. https://media3. Picsearch. com/o_fbkgngi_rikidx4c4mdxltn2xqqq6q2vjmdg and height equals 237. Mugabe's supporters hail him for moves such as dismantling white-owned estates and other holdings. Yet he also was reviled as a despot who brutally crushed dissent and allowing the once envied country to sink into a cycle of deepening poverty and stratospheric inflation. Overnight, witnesses reported tanks and soldiers moving around the city along with sounds of gunfire and explosions. By morning, soldiers in armored vehicles controlled major intersections near government buildings. In Harare's central business district, Local residents said all seemed normal, with itinerant vendors taking advantage of the many closed businesses to sell their wares at intersections. https://media3. Pic search. com/is U_GM3T_66S HV76 VMPM6 circumsbo 0 EG65 K21_LK4 and height equals 237. Police and plainclothes agents normally stationed around the Parliament building could be seen sitting on the ground surrounded by armed soldiers. Local media reported that several members of the ZANU-PF ruling party have been detained by the military, including cabinet ministers. Political analyst Mike Mavura said it was important for the military to say this was not a coup for reasons of international legitimacy. Watch, model claims assault by Grace Mugabe. We are not in the 1960s and 1970s anymore, when coups in Africa were left, right and center. I think they are trying very hard to appear progressive, he told the Washington Post. However, of interest to democracy, the elections scheduled for next year, will they take place? Zimbabwe's political crisis reached a boiling point last week with the dismissal of Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa, clearing the way for Mugabe's wife, also a vice president, to succeed him. Mugabe told supporters he had dismissed Mnangagwa for disloyalty and disrespect, as well as using witchcraft to take power. The move exacerbated divisions in the ruling ZANU-PF party, where the youth faction is firmly on Grace's side, while the older veterans of the struggle against white rule look to Mnangagwa. https://media1. Pic search. com/is F4ZGN_7OZA01HXZP_A8 ver2 RWXSX7 LVOD 6 Tarislo and height equals 224. At one point last month, Grace Mugabe even warned that supporters of Mnangagwa were planning their own coup. Mnangagwa, who fled to neighboring South Africa, has strong support with the military, and on Monday Army head Chiwenga threatened to step in to stop the purge of Mnangagwa's supporters. The party's website reported that Mnangagwa was back in the country and would be taking over leadership of the party. https://media4. Pic search. com/is Sufznug 0M Luod 7A02 Zykruk 54 Psoidxa 0A and height equals 254. Booing Mugabe's wife can bring arrest in Zimbabwe. Political commentator Maxwell Songwam said by phone that the military will likely try to pressure Mugabe to step down in favor of Mnangagwa as acting president. But this plan may not pan out, as Mugabe might resist this. So the whole thing may be messy, he warned. Once a wealthy breadbasket for the whole region, Zimbabwe's economy and especially the prosperous agriculture sector has suffered in recent years. The currency has collapsed, and at one point the country was experiencing devastating hyperinflation with denominations of the Zimbabwe dollar counted in the trillions. Mugabe's rule has been blamed by critics for the economic decline, and the aging leader was seen as being increasingly under the influence of his wife, who was also known as Gucci Grace for the rumored extravagance of her foreign shopping trips. https://media4. Pixarch. com/is. Akki 67 Lfu 5 William 6 J16 K.M.B.T Zlupjnuo D7 W Ozku and height equals 267. In recent weeks there has been an increased sensitivity to criticism, with 4 people detained for booing Grace at a rally and an American woman arrested for allegedly making insulting tweets about Mugabe. Grace was also sought by South African authorities in August after a local model accused her of assault and battery. https://media1. Pixarch. com/is. D6MHQHR7BLTZ0W6 YERMJIS0ZDC2 K0 and height equals 224.